Nolan and Wyatt's dad had a secret friendship that we weren't even in.
Yeah, they were like best friends.
We would go over to Wyatt's house, and Nolan, we would all be in the backyard, whatever, doing something, and Nolan would be inside on the couch with Wyatt's dad, and they would just be cutting it up all night.
Yeah,
I bet you $1,000,000 if it was 5 black boys and 1 white boy on the boat. By now, there would have been an arrest, there would have been a warrant, there would have been a seizure, but because America doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter, they trying to act offended because we want to ask the question, what happened to our brother? And when we ask the question, what happened? The response is we're still gathering information. We're waiting on toxicology, waiting on the grand jury. Am I my brother's keeper? That's the question underneath every delayed subpoena, every sealed file, every complaint filed against a grieving mother's nursing license. Instead of asking whoever left her son on the island, the institutional Mississippi still muttering Kane's excuse, it's not my problem. I wanted to come to Mississippi today from Georgia to let the system and to let the establishment know, let that be the last time you try to intimidate a black mother. She's got every right to fight for her son, to stand for her son, to question her son, and you better not mess with her nurse's license. Leave that black woman alone.
Well, we actually have proof that Grandpa Jerry was actually on Horns Island as well, which makes sense why he was able to call the captain, because he physically was watching. And now who was Wyatt on the phone with? Well, we know he was on the phone with Cito Call, but let me show you Grandpa Jerry.
White-haired old man. Look, I just want you.
And she also gave us a little specialty on Wyatt. And now I thank her for that treat, because we all been asking the same question. Where is Wyatt? Why haven't we heard from Wyatt? Where are his boats that one we know was missing from the MDMR report? We just have no information, no nothing on him. He is seemingly in the dark, like he's just disappeared somewhere. So where is he? And why haven't we heard from him?
Wait, text messages were just released between Nolan's mom and Warren that can answer a lot of questions. And I'm gonna go through these text messages one by one. You tell me, does it look like somebody like Warren is trying to hide something, or does it look like he's being a true friend? Now, first of all, I thought that Nolan's dad showed up unannounced as the way, Warren and them told the story. Here's the text message, July 5th, 2 in the morning. Nolan's dad is out the house to pick up the key. Remember, he was trying to get the key from Jax. He said Jax couldn't find it, or it was taking forever. Then somebody else found it, and he didn't trust Jax after that. So then here's the next one. That day in the afternoon, hey Warren, what kind of sunglasses did Nolan wear? I'm pretty sure Ray-Bans, Mrs. Christine. This is Warren. Then Warren says, hey, Mrs. Christine, just wanted to check in. We went out this morning to look, and I've been on and off the phone with Jackson County Sheriff's Office today. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. She says, thank you. Warren says, we are
District Attorney, I do not have the same freedom to share information publicly that private individuals may have. That is not a theory. That is a sentence from Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath's August 18 statement concerning the death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. And that sentence matters because while the government is saying there is a limit to what it can publicly discuss, the internet is doing the opposite, collecting footage, comparing timestamps, preserving posts, and asking whether the digital record tells a different story. Picture the case as a crime scene made of glass. Every TikTok clip, every timestamp, every phone record, every boat photograph is another shard. None of them, by itself, tells you what happened. But put enough pieces on the table, and you may begin to see the shape of what investigators are looking at. Before we go deeper into what the documents and newly circulating footage actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Now there is an important distinction we need to make immediately. TikTok users are circulating additional footage connected to the Horn Island gathering, but footage being circulated online is not automatically authenticated evidence. Some clips can establish time and location. Some can establish who was present. Some can be misleading. And some may eventually become important precisely because investigators can verify their original metadata. That distinction is everything. Because Nolan Wells disappeared after a 4th of July trip to Horn Island, Mississippi, and his body was recovered 2 days later, his family has questioned the early assumption of accidental drowning, while authorities have said the investigation remains active and that the case is expected to go before a grand jury. An independent autopsy commissioned by the family was unable to determine a definitive manner of death. Now enter the footage. One previously surfaced video appeared to show the boat associated with Nolan's final known movements. Reporting on that clip noted that the footage was posted as having been captured earlier in the day, while metadata reviewed for another version indicated a different recording time. That does not prove anything sinister. It proves something more basic. The timeline needs to be tested, and that is where social media becomes potentially useful, not because TikTok is a courtroom, but because ordinary people sometimes preserve fragments that official investigators may later need to locate, authenticate, and compare.
See, here is the press release statement from District Attorney Angel Myers-Mickelrath to the people of Jackson County, Mississippi. And it states, as District Attorney, I do not have the same freedom to share information publicly that private individuals may have. A little bigger there. For example, I do not have the freedom to release letters I've sent in the investigation, discuss witness cooperation, or testing of the evidence. I do not have the freedom to identify what information is fact over another, nor do I control the information released by private individuals who are not part of the investigative team. I cannot control whether private individuals release letters they have sent me, just as I cannot prevent them from releasing letters that I've sent them. What it seems like she's saying here is that I can't control what you guys are hearing and seeing and reading from Nolan Wells' legal team. She also said, I cannot control which facts or bits of information are shared or whether information is being shared in context, twisted, or misconstrued. Public commentary does not make the speaker transparent, just like exercising restraint consistent with the laws does not make a person or a process corrupt. The fact that something is said does not necessarily mean it's true. Next, prosecutors are held to the highest level of ethical standards of the law as it should be. People deserve no less. I understand that a void is perceived when some are speaking publicly about a matter while others do not. I would be stepping outside of the bounds of law if I were to fill that void and share information publicly. With all the public pressure being placed on my office, filling the void would not only serve to get pressure off of me. Nolan deserves better. There is no pressure that can be placed on me and no force that is greater than the weight of the oath I took and my responsibility to the people that I have. My obligation and commitment is to present to the grand jury with all the evidence collected in this case in order for them to reach a decision, and I am obliged to do so in keeping the law and the rules of the court. Now, the bottom piece here I think is really, really important. On July 23rd, 2026, I released a recorded statement explaining the process and what the people of Jackson County elected me to do in this matter. There is nothing more to be shared.
The question is not, what does TikTok believe happened? The question is, what can the original files prove? That is a very different question. The public record already tells us that Nolan's family has pursued digital evidence through formal legal channels. In July, court documents filed in Mississippi State Chancery Court sought records from Meta platforms, Snapchat, TikTok, and Life360, including messages, photographs, videos, GPS information, timestamps, account information, and other electronically stored data. Think about that for a moment. A grieving family did not merely ask strangers online to investigate. They went to court. And the court filings matter because they convert a social media mystery into a legal evidence problem. What was posted? When was it posted? Who controlled the account? What device created the file? Was the file edited? What does the original metadata show? And most importantly, what communications existed before and after Nolan disappeared? Those are questions a forensic examiner can potentially answer. And here is where the story gets even more interesting. The family and the district attorney's office had previously agreed to a joint forensic examination of Nolan's phone, with the digital forensics lab at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College identified as the proposed location and possible FBI participation discussed. But by mid-August, the examination still had not occurred. The family's attorneys said they were ready and asked the DA's office to choose a date between August 18 and August 21. The DA's office, meanwhile, has emphasized that it cannot publicly disclose investigative details and that it does not control information released by private parties. Different institutions, different obligations, one unanswered timeline. And here is the ticking clock question: if the phone's social media accounts and original video files contain evidence about Nolan's final hours, how long can that digital trail remain perfectly preserved before accounts change, files disappear, metadata is altered, or memories become less precise? That is why this is not simply an internet argument. Digital evidence has a clock. And once you understand that, the phrase "more footage" takes on a different meaning. It is not automatically a bombshell. It is a potential timestamp. That is the first turning point. No stone unturned. Now consider what the newly surfaced material can and cannot establish. A video showing Nolan or his boat at a particular time can potentially challenge a claimed sequence of events. A video showing other people nearby can establish opportunity, but not guilt. A clip showing an argument can demonstrate that an argument occurred, but not what happened afterward. This is where responsible analysis has to slow down, because the internet has a tendency to take one frame and build an entire verdict around it. We are not doing that. We are asking what the evidence can actually carry. And there is another reason this matters. The district attorney has said her office intends to present a thorough investigation to a grand jury. She has also warned that public commentary does not necessarily establish truth and that her office is constrained by legal and ethical obligations. That means the eventual case will not be decided by which video went viral. It will be decided by what can be authenticated: chain of custody, original files, witness testimony, forensic findings, phone extraction, location data, and corroboration. That is where TikTok can either become useful or become noise. Because if an anonymous user uploads a compressed copy of a video, investigators may have to find the original creator. If the original file exists, its metadata may be far more valuable than the viral copy. If multiple independent recordings show the same event from different angles, the evidentiary picture becomes stronger. The internet may find the fragment. The investigation still has to prove the fragment, and that brings us back to the phone.
Now, let's talk about what really happened on Horn Island. Horn Island does not look like a place where anything bad could happen. That is part of what makes this story so difficult to process. It sits approximately 5 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast in the Gulf of Mexico, just south of Ocean Springs. It stretches roughly 11 miles from end to end. Federally protected wilderness. No permanent residents. No staff. No drinking water. No shelter. No medical facilities. No phone signal across most of the island. The only way on is by private boat, and the only way off is the same. When you are out there, you are out there. Whatever happens on that island stays on that island until someone decides to leave and tell someone about it. On the 4th of July 2026, that island was anything but empty. Somewhere between 200 and 300 people made their way out to Horn Island for Independence Day celebrations. Many of them were young. Many were former classmates from the Ocean Springs area. It was the kind of annual gathering that people in coastal Mississippi grow up knowing about. Boats anchored offshore. People on the beach. A holiday weekend on the water, miles from the mainland and miles from any oversight. Nolan Wells was among them. He traveled out with a group of friends, most of whom he had known since his school years in Ocean Springs. The group included Warren Hudson, a close friend since 8th grade. Jack Spatalo, Morgan Seymour, Traces Tin Shepherd, and Javen Williams were also part of the day. They were young men who had grown up together, played together, and by all public accounts trusted each other. One detail about that group matters and cannot be glossed over. Nolan was the only black person among them. Every other member of the group was white. That fact did not create the questions surrounding his death, but it became inseparable from how those questions were received, interpreted, and escalated in the weeks that followed. The group did not all travel on the same boat. 2 vessels made the trip. Warren Hudson was on a 24-foot tide line. Nolan traveled on a 22-foot Triton offshore. The boats departed separately. They arrived at the same destination. And for a few hours on that island, everything appeared normal. That would not last. The gathering on Horn Island started like most 4th of July celebrations on that stretch of the Gulf Coast. Boats anchored. Music. People spread across the beach. A holiday atmosphere among a crowd of mostly young people who had made the trip out for the long weekend. What happened over the course of that afternoon is where the accounts begin to diverge. According to a document obtained by ABC News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, dated July 5th and circulated to search crews the day after Nolan was reported missing, witnesses on the island told investigators they observed Nolan consuming a significant quantity of alcohol during the gathering. That document was an internal communication, not a formal investigative finding, but it established early on that authorities were aware of his condition that afternoon. That same document noted that Nolan was seen in the company of a woman on the island. She was later identified as Katie McCormick. Before that identification became public, significant
The latest public reporting. The family's legal team said the device was ready for a joint forensic examination, while a dispute over timing and the examination protocol had delayed the process. The protocol is not bureaucratic trivia. It determines how the extraction is performed, how the evidence is preserved, who has access to the resulting data, and how the device remains defensible if its contents later become evidence. No stone unturned. There is another layer here. The family has already gone to court seeking social media records because the digital record may contain information that the phone alone cannot provide. The subpoena sought communications, videos, photographs, GPS data, timestamps, and account history from multiple platforms. So imagine the evidence chain. A TikTok video gives investigators a timestamp. A social media record identifies the account that posted it. A platform response supplies server-side information. A phone extraction provides local data. A GPS record establishes location, and witnesses either confirm or contradict the sequence. That is how a viral clip becomes evidence. Not through likes, through corroboration. And that is also why we should be careful with every claim now circulating online about Nolan's death. There are allegations, interpretations, disputed timelines, and unanswered questions. There is not yet a public finding establishing that any particular person caused Nolan's death. That distinction is not weakness. It is the standard. Nolan deserves facts, not an internet verdict. And if these newly circulating videos contain something important, the strongest thing they can do is not make us angry. They can make the timeline more precise. So here is where I want you to do something different. Do not just watch the viral clip. Research the July 2026 Mississippi State Chancery Court filings seeking Nolan Wells' social media records. Those filings specifically identify TikTok and other platforms and describe the categories of digital information being sought. Read the document. Then look at the footage. Then compare the timestamps and answer one question in the comments. Does the publicly documented digital timeline actually support the known account of Nolan Wells' final hours? Or does it leave a contradiction that investigators still need to explain? No stone unturned. If you want evidence, first updates on Nolan Wells and other unresolved cases, like this video, share it with someone who will actually read the documents, subscribe to Project Cold Case, and turn on notifications. Because when the next piece of evidence surfaces, the question is not whether it breaks the internet. The question is whether it changes the case.